panic buying, it's not really the only problem being triggered by coronavirus fears. COVID-19 is also raising anxiety levels among children.
One leading child psychologist, Clare Rowe, says she's seeing kids almost daily with coronavirus fears, and Claire joins us now. Look, these fears are grown by what they're hearing from their parents, they're seeing or reading in the media, or being exposed to in a whole new world where things come to children so much easier than they used to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm wondering whether we should elbow tap here.
Yeah, a bit of elbow action.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing, a marked change in what I'm seeing in my practice in the last 2 weeks compared to a month ago. So the hysteria and escalation of this, I mean, like nothing else I've seen before. I've seen kids with fears of climate change and other things that have bubbled along for a couple of years now. This has just taken off. And I think, part of it is just what they're seeing through the media and also in the playground. I think, unfortunately, as parents, we can't shield them from knowing about this. And I think to some degree that's why a lot of parents feel a bit helpless, because it's out of their control of what they know and what they don't.
So the big question, I guess, is what do you say to the children and the parents, obviously age dependent? Do you try and get them to change the subject? Do you state the facts?
Yeah, I think because I have to acknowledge that most kids know about this. I mean, 6, 7-year-olds, are all kind of half joking about it on the playground, but then you've got those warriors who are really taking it on. So I think I'm advising parents to actually get in there a little bit earlier and say, look, there's this thing going around, the coronavirus, what do you know? So find out what they know first. I think sometimes we have a tendency to jump in and split out all these details, and that creates kind of more worry. So get in there, say, what do you know? How do you feel about it? What are people saying about it? What have you seen? So figure out that first. And then I think what you need to do is, look, give them some rational information, give them some factual information and say, yes, there's this flu going around. What can we do to protect ourselves? We're learning more about it every day. We're working on a solution for it. But essentially, what can we do? We can wash our hands every now and then. We don't need to cover ourselves in hand sanitizer every half hour. I've seen a boy this week who, over his face, over his body, over his arms, every half hour at school. Parents, please don't send along your kids with hand sanitizers in the school bag. It's only going to give the wrong message.
Are these reminders, these moments, reminders just to let children be children? Look, I get what you're saying about giving a brief outline and just let it go. Please go outside and play. Go and play. Kick the ball, catch the ball, ride your bike.
Yeah, and I think for the vast majority, 95% of children, that's what you need to do. I mean, there'd be many children that you could actually just say to them, you don't need to worry about this. This is something that adults are taking care of. Go and play, forget about it. And I think there's a whole heap of children that would be enough. I think there's probably a minority there that go and ruminate and continue to think. And for those children, you probably need to sit them down and have a little bit more of a factual discussion, just about kind of the realities of the situation here. Because the realities of the actual coronavirus are completely disproportionate to the behaviour that these kids are seeing on TV. I mean, I was only thinking this morning that we've got, Australia has heralded this great place that supported each other in bushfires 2 weeks ago, that we all came together, and now children are seeing panic, each for your own, it's this selfish kind of world, and let's go fisticuffs in the supermarket.
I know, right? And you've got to look at some of the kids that perhaps are not talking about it as well, because they could perhaps be the deep thinkers and the warriors as well. So it's just kind of watching out for those children. And also for the parents, what if you have an anxious parent, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, with the kids who aren't talking about it, I think if you've got one of those highly strung, cautious, over-analysing kids, right? So if your kid's not talking about it, but you've never seen any signs of worry or anxiety in them in the past, they're probably fine, okay? I saw a kid this week who his biggest fear was that they would come up with a vaccination, because then he'd have to get a needle. And I thought, that's a pretty good kid response. I was pretty pleased with that. So I think if you've got one of those anxious kids, whether you should get in there and start talking to them. Otherwise, leave it alone. And anxious parents, I mean, I think you need to have some type of insight and reflection on your own anxiety. Shield it from your kids. If you need to talk to someone or get help with it, fine. But let's be aware of it and have some insight and not pass it on.
So you've got to take good out of everything, don't you? And I think that these also reminders, we mentioned before the whole idea of letting kids be kids, but also let's lead by example. As adults, let's lead by example. What we saw in those supermarkets was most unfortunate, and the fact that it can just spread everywhere, this awful sort of social Darwinism of, you know, all for me and no one else, it's such a bad message to kids of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, the complete opposite, I think, of where we were a couple of weeks ago in praising everyone for coming together and helping each other and the selflessness of it all. I just feel like we've done a complete... Is this the same country that the world is seeing now? This is ludicrous. And I'm worried about the message that gives kids. It's telling them to panic. I mean, kids are walking down supermarket aisles, just the fact that there are empty shelves, and you would have a kid, sure, that was prone to anxiety say, Mum, what's going on? You know, the other kids, sure, will laugh at it, but there will be the kids who take this on very seriously.
And just quickly, switching topics, a lot of parents are raising concerns about a new media app called TikTok. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, TikTok's actually been around for a while. It was formerly called Musical.ly, so I don't know if parents are aware of that. It was actually two apps that combined. Parents come to me and I think that they just think it's a bit of a safer app for kids these days, and essentially it is still a public domain. We've still got adults, you know, getting onto these sites, and kids are exposed to information they shouldn't be.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you coming in today.